The twin suns rose slowly over the dusty horizon, spreading golden light across the broken roads of Sector 9. In the early hours of every day, before the factories began to roar and the soldiers began their patrols, she walked alone, her arms cradling her sleeping daughter. Her name was Alina, a human mother on a world that had long forgotten compassion. The colony was not built for humans. It was designed by the Carniths, an alien race that had conquered planets not with war, but with systems. They brought structure, order, and silence, the kind of silence that smothered dreams. Humans were allowed to live on this world, but only in the lower zones, away from the clean towers and flying ships. They were useful, cheap labor, and nothing more. Alina had once been a student of engineering, back on Earth. That was before the ship she and her family boarded had been rerouted during a deep space migration. When communications failed and the crew disappeared, she found herself stranded here, alone and afraid. That was years ago, long before Mira was born. Mira was her light, her reason to breathe. The child had never walked, her legs thin and unresponsive since birth. No doctors here would treat a human girl. Alina had begged, offered everything she had, but the answer had always been the same: it's not allowed. So every morning, without exception, she carried her daughter 3 miles to the only school that accepted human children, and then walked another 4 miles to the recycling plant where she worked 12 hours a day, and every evening she carried Mira home again. It was not the weight of the child that wore her down. It was the looks, the whispers, the constant sense that her struggle was invisible. Her back ached, her feet bled in old shoes patched with tape, but she never stopped, not once. Other humans admired her in silence. Some even cried watching her pass, but admiration never fed her, and silence never changed anything. The aliens? They didn't even look at her. To them, she was just another moving shadow. That morning, however, something changed. As she stepped through the crumbling courtyard toward the school gate, she felt it. Eyes on her. Not the usual pity or disgust, but something sharper, focused. Someone was watching. She turned slightly, but saw no one. Just workers and children rushing by. Mira opened her eyes slowly in her mother's arms. "Are we there yet?" she whispered. Alina smiled, brushing her daughter's hair from her face. "Almost, baby," she answered softly. Her voice carried warmth even when her body carried exhaustion. As she reached the gate, the teacher, a human woman with silver hair and tired eyes, greeted them. "Morning, Alina," she said. "Still carrying the future in your arms, I see." Alina nodded, gently setting Mira down on the small seat outside the classroom. "Someday," she said with a tired smile, "she'll walk in by herself." As she turned to leave, that feeling returned, stronger this time. A sense of presence, danger, maybe, or something more. She looked to her right, and across the street, she saw him. Just for a second, he stood taller than the others, broad shoulders wrapped in a dusty brown cloak. His face was hidden, but she caught a glimpse of metallic eyes, shining faint blue in the sunlight. Not Carnith, not any known species here. He was human, and yet, not like them, not like anyone she'd ever seen. Before she could blink, he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. She hesitated, a strange chill brushing the back of her neck. She had learned to ignore strange things, to keep moving, keep surviving. But something inside whispered, remember this moment. Back at the plant, as she sorted metal shards into burning barrels, her mind drifted again and again to those eyes. Who was he? What did he want? Why now? That night, she held Mira a little closer, locking the door with extra care. The city lights flickered in the distance, and shadows danced outside the window. The world had never cared about them, never noticed their pain. But somewhere, someone had noticed. And for the first time in years, something had shifted in the wind. The man stood where no one ever stood, between the light of the market and the shadow of the old walls, unseen but watching. He had been observing Alina and Mira for 7 days. 7 sunrises of silence. His armor, hidden beneath layered cloth, hummed softly with forgotten technology, the kind this planet hadn't seen in generations. He was human, but not like the humans of this colony. He carried no scars from factory blades, no dirt from melted roads. His eyes, artificial and silver blue, scanned and recorded every movement. Not with judgment, but with something rarer, curiosity. His name was Rain, last of the Vanguard unit from Earth's far reach, a soldier built for long-term recon. Left behind in a failed peace mission decades ago, the files had labeled this sector lost, uninhabited, but Earth had been wrong. Rain had come in silence, drifting in orbit for months, intercepting signals, listening to the patterns of oppression, and then one day, through a cracked satellite feed, he saw her, Alina, carrying her daughter like a queen guards her crown. Each morning, the same path, the same strength. No hesitation, only purpose. He hadn't spoken to another human in years, not one that hadn't been programmed, not one that bled real blood, and yet, something about Alina kept pulling him back to that courtyard. That gate, that child, Mira intrigued him most. Her medical scans, taken quietly through his visor, showed a condition easily treatable with pre-collapse Earth tech. But here on this planet, she had been left to suffer. The thought unsettled him, made his mechanical heart beat harder. The Carnaths had outlawed human tech, afraid of what it might awaken. Afraid of humans remembering what they once were. But Rain remembered. He remembered the fire, the brilliance, the resilience of his kind. And now in Mira, he saw the spark again. He stepped into the street as Alina exited the school building, her face pale from the day's heat and hunger. Their eyes met, hers filled with alert fear, his calm but unreadable. She gripped her bag tighter, pulling Mira slightly behind her, protective. "You're human," she said first, low and wary, not as a question, but a challenge. "So are you," Rain answered, his voice metallic, filtered through his helmet. "But steady, that makes us rare. What do you want?" she asked, standing still despite the tremble in her legs. She had faced worse than strangers. Her fear had been burned into strength years ago. "I want to help," he said simply, then slowly removed his glove, revealing a hand not entirely human, metal fused with flesh. Glowing lines of data pulses beneath the skin. "I have the tools to make your daughter walk." Alina stared, eyes wide, heart pounding. Her breath caught in her throat. She had dreamed of those words, cursed them, prayed for them, and buried them too. And now here they were, from a man out of time, out of nowhere. "Why now?" she whispered, eyes narrowed. "Why her?" "Because no one else here fights the way you do," he said. "You carry more than just her weight. You carry hope, and they all see it, even if they stay silent." Mira peeked from behind her mother, staring up at Rain's strange eyes. "Can you really fix me?" she asked, voice innocent but sharp. She had learned to measure truth in tones. She had heard too many lies from too many adults. Rain knelt slowly, lowering himself to her level. "Not fix," he said. "You're not broken. Just." Paused. "I can help you press play." A soft laugh escaped Mira, the first real laugh in days. Alina's eyes filled with water. A flood she had held back too long, but still, she hesitated. "If they catch us with illegal tech, they'll kill us." "They'll try," Rain replied. "Not just survival, possibility." Rain led them to an abandoned research dome on the colony's edge, hidden under camouflage fields. The door recognized his DNA and opened with a hiss. Inside, glowing panels lit up, revealing a lab untouched by time, stocked with tech banned by alien law, but built by human hands. Mira looked around, eyes wide. "Is this real?" she asked. Alina squeezed her hand gently. "It better be," she said, "because this is everything now." Rain began the scans, his hand steady, his voice calm. Mira lay down on the table, eyes locked on the stars visible through the cracked dome roof. And for the first time in her life, she dared to imagine walking under them. The lab came alive the moment Rain stepped inside. Soft blue light flowed across the walls, panels unfolded like metal flowers, and machines hummed as if they had been waiting for him for years. Alina stood frozen near the entrance, holding Mira close, unsure if she had just walked into a miracle or a grave. This place did not belong to the colony. It was clean, silent, powerful. Everything here felt wrong in a world built to keep humans weak. Alina's heart raced. Her instincts screamed danger. Yet her eyes could not stop watching the machines that seemed to breathe with purpose. Rain moved with calm confidence, touching screens, adjusting settings. His metal eyes glowing brighter as data streamed across his vision. This facility was hidden before the Carnaths took control, he said. It was meant to help humans adapt, survive and evolve. Then it was sealed and forgotten. Forgotten by them, Alina said quietly. But not by you. Rain paused for a moment, his expression unreadable. Some of us were made to remember, he replied. Mira shifted in her mother's arms, staring at the glowing table in the center of the room. Is that where I sleep? She asked softly. Rain turned to her, his voice gentler now. Yes, for a little while. Alina tightened her grip instantly, fear rising like fire. No, she said firmly. You don't put my child on a table and fill her with machines. Rain nodded, as if he had expected this. That is why this must be your choice, he said. I will not force you. He waved his hand, and a projection appeared in the air, showing a human spine, nerves glowing faintly, then repairing themselves, strengthening, responding. Your daughter's condition is not damage, Rain explained. Her body simply never received the signals it needed. Nanotech can reconnect those paths, teach her body how to listen again. Alina shook her head slowly. Every doctor said it was impossible. Every doctor here is forbidden from trying, Rain answered. Fear makes bad medicine. Silence filled the lab, heavy and sharp. Outside, the distant sound of patrol drones echoed through the metal walls, a reminder that time was never on their side. What happens if it goes wrong? Alina asked, her voice barely holding together. Rain did not look away. Then I will take full responsibility, he said. And the Carnaths will come for me first. Mira looked up at her mother, her eyes bright but steady. Mom, she said, I don't want to be carried forever. Those words cut deeper than any blade. Alina had carried her daughter through storms, hunger, and shame. She had promised herself she would never let Mira suffer more than necessary. But what if refusing was the greater cruelty? What will they do if they find us? Alina asked. They will shut this place down, Rain said. They will erase everything human. And her? Alina pressed. Rain's jaw tightened. They will study her. That was enough. Alina stepped back, shaking her head. Then no, she said. I won't trade one cage for another. Rain studied her for a long moment, then slowly deactivated the projection. You misunderstand, he said quietly. This is not about hiding her. He turned another screen toward them, revealing star maps, human ships, signals marked as blocked. Earth has been calling this colony for decades, Rain said. The Carnaths jammed every transmission. Alina's breath caught. Earth is alive? She whispered. Very much so, Rain replied. And they are looking for reasons to return. Mira stared at the stars, her small hand trembling as she reached out. If I walk, she said slowly, will they see us? Rain smiled for the first time, small but real. Yes, he said. They will hear you loud and clear. The room trembled suddenly, alarms flickering red. Rain's eyes flashed warnings across the walls. They are scanning this sector, he said. We do not have much time. Alina felt the weight of the world press down on her again, heavier than Myra had ever been. This choice was bigger than pain, bigger than fear. It was about the future, about being seen. She looked at her daughter, at the child who had never known freedom, never known the ground beneath her feet. Are you brave? Alina asked softly. Mira smiled, nervous but shining. I learned from you. Alina closed her eyes, took a deep breath, then nodded. Do it, she said. But if they come, they will, Rain said calmly. And when they do, he activated the table, energy rising like a heartbeat. They will remember what humans are. As Mira was gently placed on the glowing surface, the machines began to move. Light wrapping around her legs like threads of hope, and outside the lab, the colony lights flickered, as if the world itself sensed something dangerous had just begun. The moment Mira's body touched the table, the lab responded like it recognized royalty. Light coiled around her legs in quiet pulses, wrapping her limbs with threads of golden data. Her small chest rose and fell slowly, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. Alina stood beside her, trembling hands gripping the edge of the console. Every second pressing down on her like gravity doubled. Rain worked in silence. Fingers flying across holographic keys, lines of code filling the air like glowing rivers. Machines scanned Mira's spinal column, mapping nerve clusters long dormant, targeting the points where silence had taken root. And then, gently, they began to speak to her cells in the language of light. Mira didn't scream, but her eyes watered, not from pain, but from something older, something buried. Her body was waking up, nerves firing like lightning for the first time in her life. Her lips parted as she whispered, "I can feel my knees," Alina gasped, covering her mouth, her heart torn between joy and fear. No doctor had ever given her that sentence. No prayer had ever answered so loudly. But outside, the storm was coming, far above the colony. In the skies choked by smoke and signal towers, a Karnath patrol ship caught a flicker of energy it did not recognize. Human frequencies had been silent for years, yet now, something was singing beneath the dust. The signal traced back to Sector 9, to a place that should have been dead. Within minutes, alarm lights flared across the colony towers, crimson beams scanning streets, drones rising from nests like awakened hornets. The Karnaths didn't care about the miracle, only that it was unapproved. Inside the lab, Rain's sensors lit up in red, his eyes narrowing as warnings flashed across his vision. "They're coming," he said quietly. "Faster than I expected." Alina stepped between him and Mira, panic returning like a wave. "Can you stop it?" She asked. "No," he said, "but I can delay it." He pressed a command, and the lab's outer dome began to shift, shielding itself in layered armor. The machines continued their work, focused entirely on Mira, who now moved her toes gently, amazed and overwhelmed. "Mom," she whispered, "they're wiggling." Tears streamed down Alina's face. Joy and fear tangled together. "That's wonderful, baby," she said. "But we need to finish quickly outside." The sound of engines roared closer. Karnath troopers in black armor dismounted, their rifles humming with sonic charge. They had no names, only orders: erase anything that remembered Earth. Rain opened a hidden compartment and pulled out a sleek gauntlet, snapping it onto his arm. Light surged along its edge, forming a shield of white plasma. "Stay behind me," he said to Alina, stepping toward the door. The entrance exploded inward before he reached it. Karnath enforcers pouring in with mechanical precision. They fired without warning. Beams slicing through the air. Rain blocked the first shot with his shield and returned fire, his gauntlet flashing bright arcs of energy. Alina pulled Mira off the table, wrapping her arms around her daughter protectively. Mira stood, shaky but upright, her feet finding balance for the first time. "I can do it," she whispered. "I can stand." "Not now, Mira," Alina cried, lifting her again. "We need to go." Rain held the line, moving like a force of nature. One man against a wall of death, but he knew time was short. He shouted toward the back. "There's a tunnel behind the storage unit. Take it now." Alina ran, cradling Mira, heart pounding with every step. Behind her, sparks flew, metal screamed, and rain roared like a dying star. She reached the tunnel and ducked inside, sprinting through the narrow passage as the walls shook from blasts above. Mira clung to her, not crying, not afraid, just whispering the same words over and over. I stood, I really did." They emerged blocks away, hidden behind debris in the old industrial zone. From there, they watched as fire consumed the old lab, Karnath ships circling above, sealing off the area. There was no sign of rain, only smoke and silence. Alina held Mira close, her breath shallow, her body aching. "He gave us this," she said quietly. "Don't waste it." Mira nodded, eyes full of light, her legs twitching with new life. "I won't," she said in the distance. The colony lights flickered again, not from failure, but from resistance building, and far above, buried behind the stars. Earth's satellites caught a signal they were never supposed to find. Hope had spoken, and it had a voice. The colony never slept, but tonight it held its breath. Buildings hummed with quiet energy, drones hovered low with blinking eyes, and the usual noise of control was replaced by a silence that felt like waiting, deep and wide. In the shadows of the ruined sector, a girl stood on trembling legs for the first time. Her bare feet pressed against the dirt she had only known from above. Mira was not the same child who had been carried through those gates each morning. Her body still shook and her steps were unsteady, but something inside her had changed. It wasn't just the nanotech awakening her muscles. It was something older, something human. Alina stayed close, watching her daughter with cautious joy. Each step Mira took felt like a heartbeat for all the forgotten ones. A small defiance against the silence the Carnaths had forced on them for years. She helped Mira sit under a broken tower, brushing dust from her hair as she whispered prayers in a language Earth had long stopped speaking. They didn't know if Rain had survived. The lab was gone, burned from orbit without mercy. The Carnaths had sealed off the area, declaring it a security breach. But Alina had seen his eyes before the fire took him, calm and full of promise. He had known what he was doing. Mira stared at her hands, watching small pulses of light move beneath her skin. Not painful but strange, like whispers crawling through her bones. "Mom," she said slowly, "I can hear things, machines, even when they're not on." Alina frowned, reaching out to check her forehead. But there was no fever, just a strange clarity in Mira's voice. "What do you mean, hear them?" she asked. "I know when the patrols are near," Mira replied. "I can feel their drones before they turn the corner, like a song with no sound." Alina blinked slowly, trying to understand. "Rain said the tech would heal you," she whispered. "He didn't say it would change you." Above them, a drone passed silently. But Mira turned her head before it came into view, her eyes tracking it through the walls. "It's not just healing," she said. "It's learning, and it's learning through me." Across the colony, whispers had already started. Some humans had seen the girl walking, seen her stumble with bleeding feet but glowing eyes. They had begun to ask questions. Had the old legends returned? Was Earth really gone? Or had it just been kept out? The Carnaths noticed the shift too. They had ruled not with violence, but with silence, allowing humans to survive as long as they didn't hope. But now hope had legs, a name, a voice, and they feared it more than weapons. They increased patrols, scanning children, arresting anyone who spoke of Earth out loud. But it was too late, because the story had already escaped. It traveled through trash tunnels and factory vents, through broken speakers and stolen comms. The girl who walks, they called her. The girl who sees machines in her sleep. Some began to follow Alina in secret, watching how she moved Mira through the alleys at night. Some offered food, old batteries, torn books, anything they thought might help the child who stood against the silence. Mira began to change more each day. Her body strengthened, her balance improved, but so did her mind. She spoke faster now, thought deeper, and sometimes stared at machines until they flickered or reset. Alina feared it at first, but she also saw the light behind her daughter's eyes, brighter than anything left in this broken place. Then one night, Mira walked to the edge of a rooftop and pointed to the sky. "There," she said. "A signal path, something trying to reach us from above." Alina followed her gaze, seeing nothing but stars. But Mira's voice had no doubt. "They're listening now," she whispered. "Earth is listening." Back in the control tower of the Carnath core base, alarms began to trigger. Unauthorized energy bursts were traced not to weapons or ships, but to one small human child. Their systems couldn't block her, couldn't trace her commands. She was inside their network, and they didn't even know how. The colony elders, humans once broken and silent, called for a meeting. Something was changing, and they needed to choose whether to run or to rise. Alina stood before them, not as a worker or a mother, but as a voice of something new. "I didn't ask for this," she told them. "I just wanted her to walk. But now she walks for all of us." In the corner of the room, Mira sat quietly, eyes glowing faintly, whispering to an old broken device. And for the first time in years, it answered back. Mira sat in the shadows of an old transmitter tower, her fingers resting on rusted wires and cracked glass. Her eyes were closed, but her mind was open, sensing frequencies like waves on an invisible ocean. The device before her had not worked in decades, but it was listening now, just like she was beside her. Alina watched in quiet awe. She didn't understand how her daughter could speak to machines, or why they responded like loyal pets. She only knew that each day Mira grew stronger, smarter, and stranger, and the world around them shifted to match in the week since the lab was destroyed. Mira had connected to over a dozen forgotten systems. She activated old weather drones, hacked into Carnath security grids, and even redirected supply routes to help starving human zones. No one taught her these things. She simply reached, and the machines obeyed. But today was different. Today Mira was reaching beyond the colony, beyond the sky. Alina knelt beside her daughter, brushing dust from her shoulder. "Are you sure it's safe?" she asked gently. Mira didn't open her eyes. "It's not," she said, "but it's necessary." With a soft breath, Mira activated the signal. The tower, long abandoned and half collapsed, flickered to life. Panels glowed with ancient light. Screens blinked with static, and a low hum vibrated through the steel bones of the structure. Across the planet, Carnath sensors lit up like alarms in a nightmare. They saw the signal go out, but they couldn't stop it. The encryption was old, human, pure Earth code. The kind the Carnaths had erased from their archives. Mira had rebuilt it from memory she never learned, only inherited. Her message was short. "My name is Mira of Sector 9. My people are alive. We are awake. We need you." The transmission cut cleanly, no trace left behind. But its echo had already been caught by hidden satellites drifting in the void. Silent watchers from a forgotten time, across the stars, on a Terran deep space vessel. A young technician blinked in shock as her console flared with a signal that should not exist. Earth Command was alerted within seconds. The girl who walked was now the girl who called back on the colony. Panic spread through Carnath Command. Mira's name was spoken in fear by generals who had once considered humans harmless. They ordered her captured, studied, silenced, but it was too late. She had become a spark in a field of dry silence, in hidden tunnels and broken alleys. Humans gathered to listen to her speak. She told stories of Earth not as myth, but as memory. She reminded them of oceans and trees and skies that didn't burn. She showed them how to reclaim stolen tech, how to bypass Carnath locks, how to speak to systems they were never meant to touch. Alina stood beside her at every gathering, sometimes protecting her, sometimes simply watching in wonder. She remembered the child who once cried because she couldn't chase a butterfly. Now that same child taught an entire colony how to rise. But the price of such power was rising too. Carnath elite troops landed on the outskirts of Sector 9, not to threaten, but to eliminate. Their ships carried silence bombs, designed to erase memory and thought in wide zones. They moved with the confidence of conquerors who had never lost, until the first fell to a trap set by scavenger boys with hacked mining tools, until the second was blinded by hacked streetlights and redirected drones, until the third found Mira standing in their path, her eyes glowing like twin stars, her voice calm but terrifying. "This is your only warning," she said. "Leave this place." They did not listen, but others did across the colony. Humans rose, not with weapons, but with connection, with coordination, with courage. The systems the Carnaths used to control them were now working against them. Mira's voice echoed through abandoned speakers, not shouting but steady. "You forgot who we are. You forgot what we carry. We are not broken." Earth received her second message just days later, a full transmission including coordinates, names, images, proof of life. The Terran response was immediate. "Stand by, Mira of Sector 9. We are coming." When Alina heard those words, her knees gave out. Not from fear, but from release, from years of weight finally lifting. Mira caught her gently, stronger now than ever before. "You carried me," Mira said with a soft smile. Now I carry all of us." The colony wasn't free yet, but for the first time in years, it wasn't forgotten either. The sky tore open with a sound the colony had never heard before. A low thunder that rolled through concrete and bone. For years the sky had only held drones, clouds, and silence. But now it held something else. Hope arrived in the shape of ships. Sleek Terran vessels descended through the atmosphere like silver arrows, their insignias glowing bright with the old Earth crest. The Karnath fleet scrambled to respond, their command towers blinking red, but nothing moved fast enough to stop what was already in motion. Mira stood at the edge of Sector 9, the same broken plaza where she once lay helpless in her mother's arms. Her feet were steady now, her back straight. Her voice was calm as she sent one final message across the open frequency. "This colony is no longer silent. Terran troops didn't arrive with guns raised. They landed with shields and scanners, identifying humans and separating them from their former overlords. Medical teams moved through the zones, treating diseases that had been ignored for decades. Engineers brought energy cells and water recyclers, fixing what the Karnaths never cared to repair." Alina watched from a rooftop as Earth's banners were raised over the governor's tower. Her eyes filled with tears she hadn't allowed in years. Mira stood beside her, no longer needing support. Her daughter wasn't just walking now. She was leading. Rain was found in the ruins of the lab, barely alive, his systems in shutdown mode. But he had survived when he opened his eyes and saw Mira standing above him, his lips curled into a tired smile. "Told you it would work," he whispered. Mira laughed and helped him sit up. "You didn't tell me I'd glow in the dark," she teased. Rain looked at her with pride. "The kind only a soldier out of time could offer. You're what comes next," he said. Within days, the Karnath regime collapsed, not from war but from truth. Their lies were exposed, their leaders put on trial, and the system they had built on human silence began to crumble. But Myra's work wasn't done. She walked through every sector, speaking to children who had never dreamed, to elders who had given up. She showed them how to access the tech beneath their feet, how to rebuild, how to believe again. The colony transformed, not overnight, but with purpose. Schools opened where factories once stood. Machines harvested crops instead of bodies. Streets filled with color, laughter, and light. And everywhere Myra went, people followed, not because she demanded it, but because she inspired it. Alina was offered a position on the new colonial council. She declined, choosing instead to open a learning house for mothers and daughters. She taught them more than survival. She taught them how to carry each other without losing themselves. One morning, months after the first Earthship landed, Mira walked alone through the plaza where her story had started. Children played nearby, chasing Wang-powered kites. The road was no longer broken, the walls no longer gray. She closed her eyes and listened. No alarms, no silence bombs, just wind and laughter. Rain approached from the side, walking slower these days, but still with the dignity of a man who had kept a promise. "They offered to take you back to Earth," he said. Mira nodded. "I know," she said, "but this is my Earth now." He looked around at the streets reborn and the people awake. "You turned pain into power," he said. Mira smiled. "No," she replied. "My mother did that. I just followed her footsteps until I could leave my own." In the distance, Alina watched her daughter walk freely through the colony, not as a burden, not as a secret, but as a beacon, and this time it was the mother who followed, proud, peaceful, and unafraid.